Welcome to Doctorates of the Absurd, your provider of belief on demand.
And today, we are tackling an absolute Everest of literature. But I want to be clear right off the bat. We are not here to give a history lesson. If you want dates and battles, go to Wikipedia.
No, absolutely not. We're here to talk about Dante Alighieri's The Divine Comedy, Hell, Purgatory, and Paradise. And look, I have to be honest with you. When I first saw this on the schedule, I groaned.
I don't blame you.
I thought of a dusty old poem, something I skimmed in a college lit class full of, footnotes about Italian politics from the 1300s. I thought it was going to be homework. But the premise we are working with today is it's different.
Right. We aren't treating this text as a museum piece. We're treating it as a live wire.
A live wire. I loved that image, but you have to sell me on it. I mean, how is a poem from 700 years ago a live wire?
Because it's a survival guide.
Yeah.
You have to understand, Dante didn't write this because he wanted to be a famous poet. He wrote it because his life had completely fallen apart.
Right. He was a politician, wasn't he? In Florence.
A high-ranking official. And then, almost overnight, he was on the wrong side of a political coup. He was exiled, sentenced to be burned at the stake if he ever returned home, and stripped of all his property. He was a man in free fall.
So this isn't some academic exercise for him.
Not at all. The Divine Comedy isn't a fantasy story. It's his attempt to build a ladder out of the abyss while he's still falling.
So our mission today is to deconstruct that ladder. We're going to look at this journey from the dark wood all the way to the eternal light and try to understand the mechanics of it.
The internal logic.
Exactly. Not just the poetry, but the architecture of the human soul that Dante lays out. Because as we went through these sources, what struck me is that this is really a deep dive briefing on the consequences of human will.
It is an engineering manual for moral consequence. It asks the question, what happens if you get exactly what you asked for, forever?
Okay, let's unpack this. And I want to start where the text starts. The outline calls this the existential friction, or the why now moment.
The crisis point, the reason for the whole journey.
Exactly. Because the poem doesn't start in hell. It starts in a forest. Inferno, Canto 1. The lines are iconic. In the midway of this our mortal life, I found me in a gloomy wood, astray, gone from the path direct.
That line is so famous we almost miss what it's actually saying. Midway of this our mortal life. Dante is 35 years old.
The biblical halfway point.
Precisely. Statistically, in his time, that is the exact halfway point of a 70-year lifespan. So he's having what we would trivially call a midlife crisis, but in his world, it is a cosmic emergency.
But is it just a midlife crisis? Because that sounds like he should just, I don't know, buy a sports car or I guess a really fast horse and get a younger girlfriend. This feels darker.
Much, much darker. Look at the text. He says he found himself there because he was full of sleep. That really stood out to me in the notes.
Full of sleep.
It wasn't that he ran into the woods on purpose. He didn't decide to be evil. He just drifted. He fell asleep at the wheel of his own life.
That's terrifying. It implies he wasn't paying attention. He just woke up one day and was lost.
That's the friction point. It's the realization that you have been sleepwalking through your own existence. You wake up, and suddenly the terrain is hostile. He calls it a savage wild.
It's a state of total disorientation.
You look around at your life, your career, your choices, your habits, and you realize you don't know how you got there, and more importantly, you don't know how to get out.
And he tries to get out, right? He sees a way. He sees this sunlit hill.
Yes, a mountain, a hill.
Yeah.
It represents salvation or happiness or maybe just sanity.
Yeah.
He wants to climb it. He wants to get to the light. But he can't.
He's blocked.
He is physically blocked. And this is where the psychology gets really interesting. He isn't blocked by a wall or a chasm. He is blocked by three beasts.
Okay, let's stop here. A leopard, a lion, and a she-wolf. Because in any summary, these are just listed as obstacles. But why these specific animals? Is this just some medieval zoology, or is there a code here?
There is absolutely a code. These aren't random monsters. They are a table of contents for hell. They represent the three categories of sin that he's going to encounter.
A table of contents. I like that. So what's the first one? The leopard.
The leopard is beautiful. It's spotted fur, very gaudy. It's quick and agile. It represents fraud and lust. Sins that look appealing, sins of incontinence, the things that seem like a good idea at the time.
The temptation that seduces you.
Exactly. Then comes the lion, and you don't need a PhD to figure that one out.
Right. Pride. Violence.
Head-on aggression. The thing that mauls you. It's terrifying, but it's straightforward. You see it coming.
So the leopard seduces you, the lion mauls you, but then there's the she-wolf. And the text really lingers on her.
It does, because the text specifically highlights her as the most terrifying one. She isn't beautiful like the leopard, and she isn't majestic like the lion.
The text says she is laden with all wants. She looks skeletal, right? Famished.
Famished, that's the key. The she-wolf represents avarice, or craving, and the terrifying part, the part that makes this a live wire for the modern listener, is the description of her hunger.
This is where Virgil comes in, his guide.
Yes, Virgil shows up to help Dante, and he explains the wolf's nature. He says, "Never sated is her ravenous will, still after food more craving than before."
More craving than before. That is the perfect definition of addiction.
Precisely. It is the feedback loop. Think about the dopamine loop on your phone. Think about doom scrolling or substance abuse or the endless pursuit of wealth for its own sake. The more you feed the appetite, the hungrier it gets.
So Dante is saying that the reason he can't just climb the hill to happiness is that his own appetites are literally hunting him down. He can get past the shiny temptations, maybe even face down his pride, but this bottomless need, it drives him back into the dark.
It paralyzes him with fear.
Yeah.
So the why now isn't just that he's sad or lost. It's that biological survival isn't enough anymore. He realizes he is in a cage of his own making. The wolf isn't just outside him.
The wolf is inside him.
Correct. And that's when he realizes he can't go up. To get to the light, he has to go down. He has to go through the darkness to understand it. He has to descend into the basement of his own soul to see what's actually powering that wolf.
Now, before they even get into hell proper, before they cross the river Acheron, they encounter a group of souls that I found, well, utterly fascinating. The outline calls this the agagonist, or the default setting.
Yes. The neutrals, or as I like to call them, the fence sitters.
The neutrals. These are the people who lived without or praise or blame. And I have to play devil's advocate here. These people didn't do anything wrong. They weren't murderers or thieves. They were just chill. They stayed out of it. They minded their own business. Why is Dante so angry at them?
Angry is an understatement. His contempt for the neutrals is visceral. It's maybe the most venomous passage in the early parts of the poem. Virgil, his guide, his hero, tells him, "Mercy and justice scorn them both. Speak not of them, but look and pass them by."
That is harsh. Look and pass them by. Like they aren't even worth a conversation. They're cosmic spam.
Worse. Consider what that means. Heaven rejects them because they weren't good. Okay, that makes sense. But hell also rejects them.
Wait, hell won't take them. Why not?
The text says, "Hell receives them not, lest the accursed tribe should glory."
Explain that. Hell won't take them because the actual sinners would feel superior to them.
Exactly. Imagine you're a murderer in hell. You chose evil. You had passion. You took a stand, even if it was a terrible one. You would look at a neutral, someone who never stood for anything, who just drifted with the wind, and you'd say, "At least I was a person. At least I made a choice. You were just space filler."
Wow.
Dante is dismantling the idea that neutrality is a safe moral play. In this universe, neutrality is the erasure of the self. It's choosing to be nothing.
So the default setting of society, keeping your head down, not getting involved, just trying to be comfortable, Dante says that is worse than crime.
He says it is less than human. And look at the punishment. It's so specific. They are chasing a whirling banner that never stops.
Yeah.
And they're being stung by wasps and hornets.
It seems so random. Wasps. Why wasps?
It's poetic justice. It's the contrapasso. They followed every shifting trend, every whirling banner of public opinion or fashion in life, never taking a firm stance on anything. So now they're forced to chase a meaningless blank banner forever.
Okay, the banner makes sense. What about the stings?
Because they were never stimulated by a great moral cause, good or evil. They are now stimulated by petty irritants, wasps and flies. Their blood and tears feed worms on the ground. It's a state of constant, meaningless annoyance.
The street-level takeaway here really hits. Staying out of it isn't a safety play. It's a forfeiture of your humanity. You're getting stung by the comment section forever.
That is a perfect modern analogy. It is a life of meaningless annoyance without the dignity of a great tragedy or a great triumph.
Which brings us to the stakes of this entire journey. Why does Dante need to go through this? What is the ultimate cost of staying in that dark wood, of being a neutral? Virgil says they're going to see those who have lost the intellectual good.
The intellectual good. This is a term we need to stop and define because it's not what it sounds like.
Yeah, because to a modern ear, that sounds like they lost their SAT scores or they forgot how to do long division.
Right. It's not about IQ. It's not book smarts. In the medieval worldview, the intellectual good is the ultimate purpose of the mind. To know truth, to know reality, to understand why things are the way they are.
So losing it means what? Insanity.
In a way, yes, a specific kind of insanity. It means the abandonment of the rational mind. It means being trapped in the immediate sensory experience of pain or desire without any ability to understand it or transcend it. You're just a bundle of nerves reacting to stimuli.
So you can feel the pain, but you can't process why it's happening.
Exactly. When you read that inscription on the gate of hell, "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here," the hope they're abandoning isn't just the hope of getting out. It's the hope of making sense of things. It's the death of reason.
That is terrifying. It's the death of meaning. You're just suffering and you don't know why and you can't stop it and you can't even form a coherent thought about it.
It is the ultimate nightmare, and that sets the stage for everything that follows. Hell is a place without meaning, where people are trapped in the consequences of their own irrationality.
Which leads us perfectly into the second part of our briefing, the conceptual blueprint. Because there is a logic to this place. It's not random torture.
No, it's highly engineered. It's a physics engine.
And there's a pivot point here that the outline identifies a flip in the perspective of freedom. I think most people today, if you ask them what freedom is, they'd say, doing whatever I want.
So, autonomy, lack of restriction, don't tread on me, the absence of rules.
But Dante flips that completely on its head. In Hell, we see circle after circle of people who did whatever they wanted. And what's the result?
They are enslaved, utterly.
Let's use the classic example, Canto v. Paolo and Francesca.
The lustful. This is one of the most famous moments in the Inferno. They're swept around forever by a hellish hurricane that never rests, a violent dark wind.
And Francesca tells Dante her story, and I have to admit, when I first read it, I felt bad for her. It sounds so romantic. She says things like, "Love that in gentle heart is quickly learnt. Love that denial takes from none beloved."
She makes it sound like they couldn't help it.
Yeah.
Like they were victims of a cosmic force called love.
Right. She frames herself as a victim. She says, "Love led us to one death." She takes zero responsibility for her actions. She blames the book they were reading.
She blames everything but herself. But look at the punishment, the contrapasso. They let their reason be swayed by lust. They let their passions blow them around in life. So now, in the afterlife, the environment reflects that internal state. They are literally blown around by a wind they can't control forever.
So their freedom to follow their passion resulted in a total lack of agency. They can't stop, they can't rest, they can't even talk unless the wind allows it.
Exactly. In Dante's model, that isn't freedom. That's slavery to impulse. Now contrast that with paradise.
Okay, let's jump way ahead.
Much later, in Paradiso Canto III, Dante meets a soul named Picarda. She's in the lowest sphere of heaven, the sphere of the moon. And Dante, being very human and still thinking in terms of hierarchy, asks her a very pointed question.
He basically says, don't you want to be higher up? Don't you want a promotion? Aren't you jealous of the high rollers in the center?
He's projecting his own ambition onto her.
Yeah.
He can't understand why she'd be happy on the lowest rung. And she smiles. The text says she smiles like a first love, and says one of the most beautiful lines in the whole poem, "In his will is our tranquility."
In his will is our tranquility.
The pivot is realizing that freedom isn't the absence of law. Freedom is aligning yourself with the cosmic structure. When you bind yourself to the right, you stop trembling. You stop being blown around by the wind of your own chaotic desires.
It's the difference between a leaf in a storm and a planet in orbit. One is free to go anywhere but has no control. The other is bound to a specific path but has perfect stability and purpose.
That's a perfect analogy. And this brings us to the physics engine of hell, the governing law, the one rule that determines how everything functions. Dante calls it contrapasso.
Contrapasso, counter penalty.
It's the idea that the punishment figure the crime. But it's deeper than that. It's not an eye for an eye. The punishment is the crime, revealed in its true nature, stretched out over eternity.
Let's run through some examples from the sources because the imagery is wild and I want to really visualize this engine at work.
Sure, let's go a quick tour.
Okay, take the wrathful in Canto 7. These are people who spent their lives being angry, consumed by rage, maybe getting into fights. Where are they?
They are stuck in the muddy slime of the river Styx, tearing each other apart with their teeth.
It's disgusting, but it makes perfect sense. They spent their lives tearing at people metaphorically with their words and actions. Now they do it literally.
And critically, they are unable to speak clearly. They are just gargling mud. Their rage destroyed their ability to communicate in life, so in death they can't form words at all. They just gurgle.
Okay, what about the gluttons in Canto 6? They lived for sensory comfort, for fine food and drink. They wanted the softest pillows, the best wine.
And now they are lying in sealess, accursed, heavy, and cold rain. It's a disgusting, freezing slush, and they are being torn apart by a three-headed dog, Cerberus.
And they themselves are barking like dogs.
Right. They reduce themselves to their appetites, so they're reduced to a beastly state. They made their god their belly, so now they wallow in filth forever. You wanted comfort. Here is eternal, filthy discomfort.
The one that always gets me, and this one feels like it's straight out of a horror movie, is the suicides in Canto 13.
That is a particularly dark forest. Is one of the most disturbing parts of the poem.
They are trees. They rejected their human bodies, so they don't get to keep them. They are turned into these gnarled, thorny trees.
And they can only speak when a branch is broken and they bleed. It's this horrific image of pain being the only way they can communicate. But again, look at the contrapasso. They violently separated their soul from their body. So their soul is trapped in a different, lower form of life, unable to move, unable to escape. They wanted out of their life, and now they are rooted to one spot for eternity.
And the harpies are there, right? These bird-like monsters.
Yes, who constantly peck and tear at their leaves, causing them endless pain. It's a symbol of a self-destructive conscience, constantly picking at old wounds.
The outline mentions the expert analysis here is that if this were a video game engine, the code is your output becomes your environment.
That's it. You build your own cage. Hell isn't a dungeon God built to punish people he didn't like. Hell's is the state of being that these souls chose, magnified and frozen for eternity. If you are an angry person, you build a world of anger around you. Eventually that world hardens and you can't get out.
I want to touch on two deep dive details here that really flesh out this horror. Let's start with Ugolino and Ruggieri. This is way down at the bottom, in the ice.
Canto Exit 2 and Exit 3, the circle of treachery. This is probably the most gruesome image in the entire poem. It's unforgettable once you've read it.
Dante sees two heads frozen together in one hole in the ice, and one of them is gnawing on the skull of the other.
Eating his brain. He describes it as a dog chewing on a bone. The man is Count Ugolino, and he's eating Archbishop Ruggieri.
What's the backstory there?
In life, Ruggieri betrayed Ugolino, had him locked in a tower with his sons and grandsons, and starved them all to death. Ugolino had to watch his children die of hunger. So now, in hell, his own eternal hunger is sated by feeding on his betrayer.
It's the ultimate image of resentment. Resentment literally feeding on itself.
It creates nothing. It nourishes nothing. It's just gnawing on the past forever.
Mm-hmm.
If you hold on to a grudge that intensely, you are eventually just eating a cold skull in a hole.
And the second detail, the centaurs. We skip past the violent section, but the guardians there are fascinating.
Canto 12. They guard Phlegethon, the river of boiling blood. And they are the perfect guardians for this role, because the centaur is half man, half beast.
Violence is when the beastly nature overwhelms the human reason.
Exactly. So these part man, part beast creatures patrol the banks, armed with bows and arrows. They're shooting any soul that tries to lift itself out of the boiling blood higher than its guilt allows.
It's a mix of human intelligence, the skill with a bow and raw beastly force. That's a scary combination.
It is the definition of tyranny, using the mind to organize and enforce brutality.
So the geography itself tells the story. Hell is a funnel, a cone.
A funnel of decreasing volume and increasing pain. As you go down, the circles get smaller, the space gets tighter, and the sins get heavier or colder. You start with sins of incontinence, losing control of your natural appetites like lust and gluttony.
The hot sins.
Right. Then you move down to violence, which is worse. And finally, at the very bottom in the ice, you get fraud and treachery.
It's interesting that fraud is worse than violence. That seems counterintuitive to a lot of people. I'd rather be lied to than punched in the face.
In Dante's book, yes, fraud is far worse, because violence is animalistic. A lion can be violent. But fraud requires the human intellect. To use the greatest gift God gave you, your rational mind, to deceive and hurt others. That is the ultimate perversion. That's why it's at the bottom, in the cold, furthest from the warmth of God's love.
Okay, so that's the descent, a spiral into paralysis and cold. But we can't stay there. We have to climb. Let's talk about purgatory, because I feel like in pop culture, purgatory is just hell light or hell's waiting room.
That is a massive misconception. Purgatory is the polar opposite of hell in its function. Hell is a funnel you fall into. Purgatory is a mountain you have to climb.
So it's active, it's work.
It's hard work. In hell, you just fall. Gravity takes you. In purgatory, you have to overcome gravity with every step. It represents the active, willful effort of changing your habits and purifying your soul.
And the punishment is different, right? It's not eternal.
Correct. It's not really punishment. In hell, the suffering is penal. It's just consequences. In purgatory, the suffering is medicinal. It's therapy. It's designed to heal you.
Give me an example of this therapy.
Okay, take the proud. In hell, pride is punished with, say, being frozen in ice. In purgatory, on the first terrace of the mountain, the proud are forced to carry massive stones on their backs.
Like Atlas carrying the world.
Exactly. The weight is so heavy, it forces their heads down. They're physically forced into a posture of humility. They have to look at the ground, where carvings in the pavement depict acts of humility. They are learning to bow.
So the pain has a purpose. It's training. It's like lifting weights for the soul.
It is exactly like that. They carry the stone until they don't need the stone anymore, until their soul has learned humility on a deep, instinctual level. Then the weight is lifted, and they can climb to the next terrace.
There is a specific moment in purgatory that illustrates this mechanism beautifully. The earthquake.
Ah, yes. Statius. This is in Purgatorio, Canto XT1. Dante and Virgil are climbing, and suddenly they feel the entire mountain shake in a massive earthquake. And they hear a shout from all the thousands of souls on the mountain, Gloria in excelsis Deo.
Glory to God in the highest. And Dante is terrified. He thinks the mountain is collapsing.
But then a soul appears, the Roman poet Statius, who has just completed his time there, and explains what happened. The mountain trembles, he says, when any spirit feels itself so purified that it may rise.
So the earthquake wasn't a disaster. It was an applause. It was a soul graduating.
Yes, it was the mountain celebrating a soul leveling up. And here's the kicker. Statius explains that the prison of purgatory is unlocked from the inside. He says, purification by the will alone is proved.
Wait, unpack that. Unlocked from the inside.
He implies that there were no guards keeping him on that terrace. There were no chains. He was technically free to go up any time he wanted. But his own will, his own knowledge of his impurity, kept him there until he felt he was ready, until he knew he was clean.
That's a huge psychological shift from hell. In hell, the gates are locked from the outside. In purgatory, you hold the key and you lock yourself in until you're fixed.
Which implies that the only thing keeping us from ascent is our own baggage. We hold on to the stone because on some level we know we still need it.
And then at the very top of this mountain, the big handover, Beatrice, we have to talk about her. Virgil can't go any further.
This is maybe the most painful and beautiful moment for Dante the character. Virgil has guided him through all of hell, up the entire mountain of purgatory. Virgil represents human reason, philosophy, the best that the human mind can do on its own.
He's the ultimate rational guide.
But he can't go into heaven. He was a virtuous pagan, but he lived before Christ. Reason has a limit. At the top of purgatory, Virgil fades away. He just vanishes. And Dante weeps.
And Beatrice appears, his childhood love, now a divine figure.
And she represents revelation, divine love, intuition, grace.
It's that realization that you can't think your way to the ultimate answer. You can analyze the data, you can build the philosophy, you can deconstruct the arguments, but eventually you have to love your way there.
Exactly. Reason builds the launch pad, but love lights the rocket. You have to switch engines to achieve escape velocity from the self.
Okay, let's go to that final engine. Paradise. What is the architecture there? Is it just clouds and harps?
No, not at all. That's a cartoon. Paradise is spheres of light and speed. It's an astronomical model based on Ptolemaic cosmology. There are 9 concentric spheres, and the closer you get to the center, which is God, the faster the motion. It's pure energy.
So it's not static, it's incredibly dynamic.
It's high-velocity orbit, and everyone is moving in perfect harmony, and once he's there, he has to take an exam, which I found hilarious. You go through all of that, and then there's a pop quiz, laughing, the celestial oral boards.
Literally, St. Peter, St. James, and St. John appear, and they grill him.
On the 3 theological virtues, faith, hope, and charity. It's interesting because Dante, the character, has to define his terms. He has to articulate precisely what he believes before he can see the final reality.
What's the takeaway there?
It suggests that language and understanding are prerequisites for the beatific vision. You have to know what you're looking at. Clarity of thought is essential for clarity of sight.
Okay, I want to move to the lexicon of the absurd. These are the terms or concepts that you really need to grasp to unlock the text. We've touched on a couple, but let's drill down.
Sure, these are the key codes.
Term number 1, the blind life.
This comes right back to those neutrals we talked about at the entrance to hell. The, quote, the lightning strike is, their blind life so meanly passes that all other lots they envy.
Blind life. The street-level translation of that sounds like existing like a zombie, just consuming resources but not actually seeing reality.
It's a life without awareness, a life where you never ask why. You just react to whatever is in front of you. You're a biological output without spiritual input. You just exist, but you don't truly live.
Term number 2, the second death. This phrase pops up in Canto 1 when Virgil is describing what Dante will see in hell, where thou shalt hear despairing shrieks and see spirits of old tormented who invoke a second death.
This is a chilling concept. They are already dead physically. That was the first death. The second death they are invoking, begging for, is the annihilation of the soul.
They want to cease to exist entirely.
Yes, their suffering is so absolute, so devoid of meaning that non-existence is preferable. But in Dante's cosmology, the soul is immortal. You don't get the release of zero. You have to exist in the world you made for yourself. The second death never comes.
That is heavy. Let's pivot to something lighter, literally. Term number 3, buxomness. Now, wait, the notes are very clear here. In the archaic sense.
Yes, please, let's clarify that. We are not talking about 1950s pinups. In the 14th century, buxom comes from an Old English root meaning to bow or to yield. Bowsome, like the bough of a tree that is flexible.
So it means obedience or flexibility.
It means a joyful, fluid yielding to your purpose. It's frictionless action. In Paradiso Canto A2, St. Bernard describes the angel Gabriel waiting on Mary, and he says Gabriel has whatever of buxomness and free delight may be in spirit.
Free delight. That's the key phrase. It's not forced, resentful obedience. It's the joy of functioning exactly as you were designed to function, like a wheel spinning perfectly on an axle.
Exactly. In hell, everything is grinding. It's friction and resistance. In heaven, it's buxomness. It's flow. It's the athlete in the zone, the musician lost in the music.
And the final term from our lexicon, transhumanize.
Transhumanar. Dante actually invents this word in Paradiso Canto 1.
Why?
He literally cannot find a word in Italian to describe what is happening to him as he enters heaven, so he mashes words together. Tras, meaning beyond, and humanar, human.
To pass beyond the human.
He's trying to describe what happens to the soul as it ascends. It's not just a human being in a better place. It's a fundamental leveling up of his entire being, a biological glitch in the matrix where the mortal enters a realm of pure light and becomes something else.
It's the ultimate software update. You stop running on the legacy human OS.
That's a pretty good way to put it.
All right, let's get into the intellectual aftershock. This is where we try to visualize the big payoff of the whole journey. We have to talk about the bottom of hell versus the top of heaven, because the contrast is, it's not what you'd expect at all.
No. Pop culture shows Satan as this charming ruler, this king of hell, maybe laughing, plucking people with pitchforks, a cool anti-hero with all the best lines.
But in Canto XE4, Dante and Virgil reach the very bottom, Causidus, the center of the earth. And what do they see?
They see a giant, mindless machine. Satan is frozen in ice from the waist down. He is enormous, but he's utterly impotent. He has 3 faces, a grotesque parody of the Trinity. And he's crying.
He's crying. The Lord of Evil is crying. That changes everything.
From 6 eyes flow the tears. And in his 3 mouths, he is mindlessly chewing on the 3 greatest traitors in history. Judas Iscariot, who betrayed Christ, and Brutus and Cassius, who betrayed Julius Caesar. But the thing to visualize is his wings. He has these massive leathery bat wings, and he's flapping them, constantly trying to escape the ice.
But the physics, the wind from his own wings is what's freezing a lake.
Exactly. The wind from the wings freezes the ice. The harder he struggles to escape, the more he freezes himself and everyone else in.
That is the ultimate image of the mechanical and the futile. It's a machine of perpetual betrayal and self-entrapment. He's not a king. He's a cosmic battery powering his own prison of cold wind. He is the ultimate prisoner of his own will.
It's lonely, it's cold, and it's mechanical. He is the absolute zero of the soul. There's no fire, no passion, just cold, stupid repetition.
Now compare that to the peak of heaven, the vision Dante gets at the very end. The Snow White Rose in Paradiso Canto XX.
This is the vision of the community of the saved souls. They aren't individuals floating on clouds. They're arranged in thousands of tiers, like the petals of a massive, luminous white rose.
A single organism.
The single living organism of light. And the angels are flying between the souls and God, who is the sun at the center of the flower-like bees.
Bees, that's such an organic, beautiful image.
He says they are flying like bees, distributing peace and love. They are pollinators of grace, carrying light from the center out to the petals and back again.
So hell is a frozen, isolated windmill. Heaven is a living, interconnected hive.
It's organic. It's a shared consciousness. In hell, everyone is isolated. The traitors are frozen in ice, unable to even turn their heads to look at each other. In heaven, everyone is part of this massive breathing organism of shared joy.
That's a powerful hallucination.
Yeah.
The mechanical empire versus the living rose. It really drives home the point that evil is ultimately lifeless, repetitive, and stupid. Good is vibrant, complex, and alive.
And that leads us to the final moments.
Hmm.
The parting shot. The ultimate destination.
The source gives us the very last lines of the Divine Comedy.
Paradiso, Canto XC3. Dante has seen the vision of God. He's looked into the light, and his mind has reached its absolute limit. The quote is, "High fantasy lost power and here broke off." He's saying, my brain just short-circuited. I can't describe it anymore.
But he ends with the realization about what is driving him now, what's moving his soul.
But already my desire and will were rolled like a wheel that moves its rolling even by the love that moves the sun and the other stars.
The love that moves the sun and the other stars.
It's the final aha moment. He realizes that the physics of the universe isn't cold gravity. It isn't random chance. The engine that drives the galaxies, that puts planets in orbit, is the same force that has realigned his own will. It's intentional love. And when his will aligns with that love, when he finds that buxomness, he finds peace. He becomes a wheel spinning in perfect harmony with the cosmos.
So bringing this all back to the listener, we promised some viral hooks or scroll stoppers at the beginning. If we were to summarize these big, heavy ideas into direct challenges for Monday morning, what are they?
Okay, here's one. Hook number 1. You think staying neutral keeps you safe? Dante says the hottest places in hell turn you away because you're not even worthy of punishment. You're just noise.
Oof. That hits the modern apathy right where it lives. Check your default settings. What's the next one?
Hook 2. Your addiction isn't a tragedy, it's a geometry problem. You're digging a pit, and eventually the walls will be too steep to climb out.
That's the funnel of hell, the feedback loop of the she-wolf. That's a powerful way to reframe self-destructive behavior. And the third?
And finally, hook number 3. The only difference between a prison and a paradise is whether you love the law that governs you.
That's Picarda again. In his will is our tranquility. That is a challenge to our whole modern conception of freedom.
If you fight the structure of reality, it's a cage. If you accept it and align with it, it's a home.
We started by saying this was a briefing on the absurd. And it is absurd, in a way, to try to compress the entire medieval cosmos into a single deep dive.
It is. But that's the human condition, isn't it?
Yeah.
We are finite beings trying to grasp the infinite. We draw maps, even if the territory is boundless.
So to you, the learner listening right now, don't just read the map. Walk the path. Check your default settings. Are you a neutral, just chasing a banner? Are you feeding the she-wolf?
Or are you ready to stop trembling? Are you ready to start the climb and find your tranquility?
That's it for this deep dive.
Keep climbing.